It's time to end the era of mass incarceration. We need a true national debate about how to reduce our prison population while keeping our communities safe.
Do we need criminal justice reforms? Absolutely.
There's a lot of pain and a lot of anger in our country because of a number of things that have been building for a long time.
It is not acceptable to have these divisions between our friends in the African American community and law enforcement.
This idea of looking at everything through the prism of race, I think, is damaging to our country.
And let's talk about this now on the Roundtable. We're joined by Bill Kristol, editor of the Weekly Standard, Katrina vanden Heuvel, editor and publisher of The Nation, Dana Perino, former press secretary for George W. Bush, now with Fox, and author of the new book. And the good news is Lessons and Advice from the Bright Side. And Bill Richardson, a Democrat who served as UN ambassador, Secretary of Energy, Governor of New Mexico. Welcome to all of you. Let's begin with this pretty remarkable week in Baltimore. Bill Kristol, you heard Congressman Cummings at the top of the show say he thought Baltimore came out pretty well by the end of the week. Your take?
I hope they come out better, but it's been a city that's had an awful lot of trouble over the last few decades, and I'm just struck by the contrast with New York. You know, New York instituted broken windows policing. I think there were 2,300 murders in New York in 1990, 333 last year. I mean, that's a pretty amazing drop. New York is now safer than America on the average. It was 3 times more dangerous in terms of homicides 20 years ago. I think you need to have tough policing. Obviously, policemen should be held accountable when they do something wrong, but we cannot abandon tough policing and law and order.
Baltimore also had tough policing under
Governor O'Malley.
Governor O'Malley, Mayor O'Malley then of Baltimore.
Crime went down a little bit during his term.
Let's hope that someone like Marilyn Mosby of Baltimore signals the future. No justice, no peace. She's speaking to communities which have, through abusive, discriminatory policing, communities of color been targeted. And what we're seeing now is a history, a context, George, so that I think it's about egregious policing. According to the ACLU, 109 people died in police custody since 2010. But it's also about the need, if it's possible, for a national urban agenda, because these communities are also trapped in a prison of inequality, of despair, of joblessness. I think we have a transpartisan moment where people won't channel their inner Nixon, but we'll channel ideas about new kinds of policing and mass incarceration.
Because it does seem, Dana Perino, that there does seem to be, we heard Senator Tim Scott, we saw those presidential candidates right there, there does seem to be some kind of a consensus forming about reform of the criminal justice system.
Yeah, and this has been building. It's across the board. When you have Rand Paul, Hillary Clinton, Cory Booker, and Tim Scott, everybody on the same page, it seems to me that if they think it is this much of a problem, that we shouldn't wait until the presidential election after 2016 to address it. If there is momentum, why don't they do it? But this is where I think the rubber hits the road is, what are the details? What kind of crimes are they going to allow people to walk away from? Is it gun possession? I mean, gun possession has a lot to do with this. Is the left going to be okay with illegal gun possession, those crimes being reduced? Maybe so. Maybe that's appropriate.
You know, there's a lot of agreement in the issue of generality. I think Dana's right. Will they actually get something done?
I believe so. I think criminal justice is going to be a big issue in the presidential campaign. And what we're talking about, I mean, I was a governor and then congressman in the Bill Clinton years. And, you know, the thing to do was tougher penalties on drug offenders, mandatory minimum sentences, mass incarceration, build more prisons. I mean, that doesn't seem to have worked. And I think what you're going to see is candidates talking about ways that we have not necessarily fewer prisons, but job training. I think there's going to be more talk about income inequality. That's going to be a big issue. Poverty, inner city education. I think one of the big problems, George, we have in the inner cities is these kids, these young kids need to get stronger schools and more education.
You know, Katrina, we just heard Bernie Sanders talking about income inequality. How serious a threat is he?
What you just did, George, was introduce Bernie Sanders to millions of Americans. If the mainstream media gives Bernie Sanders a chance, he is the real deal, is a big deal, and his message is going to resonate.
You don't think he can win?
There are formidable obstacles, but his message is in sync with the populist moment we are in. And I think his message that he wants to fulfill the promise of America, that this is not a country that is going to be defined by billionaires, but lift up ordinary Americans, deal with staggering income inequality, the climate crisis, give people good jobs, not be held to corporate-defined trade deals, Bernie Sanders, who announced to the nation a year ago that he would consider running for president, let's give him a chance. And the mainstream media might well trivialize and distort, or others. But let's give Bernie a chance.
Populist moment?
I think it is a populist moment, but I think, incidentally, on crime, the populist answer is to lock up criminals. Bill Clinton was right. I'm disappointed to see Bill Richardson, who served him so loyally, now abandoning Bill Clinton's message. The Democratic Party as a whole has abandoned Bill Clinton's centrism. I think it is, though, a populist moment in the sense that people, middle-class, working-class Americans, would like to see policies that help them more. But so fine, let's have school. I mean, the single best thing one could do for poor kids in Baltimore or anywhere else is have more choice of schools, more competition among schools. In New York, there are terrific charter schools attempts, which Bill de Blasio, this hero of the left, is trying to shut down. Have there been much attempts to introduce charter schools as a competition, break up the teacher union stranglehold in Baltimore? I don't think so. Will any Democrat run as a school reformer the way Bill Clinton did this year? I'm doubtful.
That's one of the big issues.
I just think there has to be a balance.
Yeah.
And clearly, I think we went too heavy on the mass incarceration. Look, and I think the police have taken a bad rap. But it's clear. I mean, we need more training of our police, more diversity in the police forces. We need more, like in Baltimore, they should have been more reactive. They should have moved faster. I think it's a good debate. I'm not abandoning Bill Clinton, although
I was just teasing you there, Bill.
It's not even Bill Clinton. There are thoughtful Republicans who are laying out alternatives, as Dana suggested. This is a moment for real solutions and not just calling for tough policing, which we've seen blow up in cities, epidemic after epidemic in these last months.
A lot of Democrats,
there's a balance.
Dana Perino, also rethinking trade, not only crime. And, we just talked to Bernie Sanders about that issue coming up. President Obama trying very hard to get it passed. Hillary Clinton not ready to declare where she stands.
I think this was actually one of the biggest stories of the week, even though some of my colleagues didn't agree with me, because there's other bigger news. But the debate within the Democrats about trade, to me, is fascinating. You hardly have any of the moderate Democrats of like sort of the 1990s, 2000s left. You have them rethinking their positions. And you have President Obama, who has not had any deep relations with anybody in Congress, now having to struggle and is probably going to lose on the Democratic side this trade fight. I think, and I'm just fascinated by it, and I think Hillary Clinton is in a real
loss. So you think the bill? You think it's going to go down?
I think that there is a real possibility that this trade bill does not get passed.
I heard from a reliable Democratic congressperson that 84% of the House caucus is opposed to it. You got 75 to 80 Republicans.
I remember the days on NAFTA. I was one of the very few that supported it when President Clinton proposed it. But it started building. I think Dana's right. Democrats in the majority will probably reject it, but trade authority will pass with Republican support.
You think the Republicans will come around?
My worry is really America's labor unions. They've been very useful, very good. My worry is that this is going to be another decline if a trade bill passes. So I would like to see the House and Senate put very strong labor, worker rights, environmental standards in the trade agreement.
President Obama says he's already put that in.
But what Bill is saying is, the trade unions and Democrats aren't against fair trade and globalization, but these trade rules are being written by corporations and banks. It speaks to what Bernie Sanders, when at his best, he talks about the rigged rules that have been written for the few, for the few. We can do better.
Let me bring this to Bill Chris before we go. I want to talk about Chris Christie and those indictments that came down on Friday. He says still full speed ahead, going back up to New Hampshire. Any chance?
I saw him this week in Washington, and he's planning to go to New Hampshire, have 1 million town halls, and try to make his case. Some chance, because it's such a wide open Republican field this year. It's not your typical Republican race. The Democrats are having the Republican race with the prohibitive front runner. The Republicans are having the Democratic race with several, I think, very well qualified governors, senators, former governors, and so forth. I think that's Christie's problem, though. There are plenty of impressive people already in the field. So it's not as if voters, Republican primary voters, are looking around and saying, we need Chris Christie.
And Dana Perino, this week alone, I mean, tomorrow you're going to have Ben Carson get in the race. Carly Fiorina is going to be on Good Morning America, getting in the race tomorrow. Mike Huckabee on Wednesday. It's let 1,000 flowers bloom, huh?
Yeah, so I feel like the field is stronger than 2012. And much like you probably had relief after you left politics and got to be on this side, I'm having fun now being an observer. And I think that there's a lot of substance and a lot of debates. We're only 3 months away from the first Republican primary debate, so they've got to make a move now and jockey their way to at least have some sort of leadership position.
They're going to need 3 or 4 tiers for all the candidates.
I was just in Wisconsin, which was very interesting, and had a chance to meet with a broad range of people. And, Governor Walker's been out of that state more than he's been in it in the last month, and pretty good Marquette poll shows that Bush, Rand Paul, and Rubio are leading in his own state.
And, yet Walker's leading in Iowa and New Hampshire.
But he's not popular. The budget cuts against higher ed and assault on working people, not popular.
You know, I was in the presidential race. I didn't last very long, so I don't have a lot of expertise. But I wouldn't count Christie out. I mean, it's so early. He's had a big blow with these indictments. But I wouldn't... I think Huckabee, he controls a large vote of the religious right. I wouldn't discount him either. Obviously, you know, I'm not an expert, but I think Walker, Rubio have emerged. I still think that in the end, the Republicans will see that their most viable candidate is Jeb Bush, and a Hillary-Jeb Bush fight will be very interesting, and it could go either way. That's my prediction.
We got a long way to go. We're out of time, though, for today. Thank you all very much.